Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from Boise, Idaho. This is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives and check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/Great Detectives. If you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us using your favorite podcast software. Today's program is brought to you in part by the financial support of our listeners. You can support the show on a one-time basis by mailing a donation to Adam Graham, P.O. Box 15913, 15913, Boise, Idaho, 83715. I want to thank Laura, Sherry, and Carolyn for supporting the program that way. You can also send a donation at support.greatdetectives.net, and I want to thank R.A. for supporting the program that way. And you can become one of our ongoing Patreon supporters for as little as $2 or more per month. And I want to welcome R.B. Matt as our latest Patreon supporters. R.B. at the Master Detective level of $15 or more per month. And Matt at the Detective Sergeant level of $7.14 or more per month. Thank you so much for your support. Well, now it is time for this week's episode of Broadway's My Beat. The original air date, November 19th, 1949, and this one is the Eugene Bullock murder case.
Broadway's My Beat. From Times Square to Columbus Circle, the gaudiest, the most violent, the lonesomest mile in the world.
Broadway's My Beat, with Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover.
Broadway, it's a jagged dream of concrete and steel and twisted faces, where the vision of beauty stands in a doorway at the end of night. You go looking for it, and you're stopped by a guy selling the latest postcard or a sightseeing tour through Joyland. And you keep looking. Then the same guy stops you and lays you out you'll never make it. And you never do. It's Broadway, My Beat. A cop doesn't have to go looking for death. They call you in on it. My call was a greasy brownstone building that crouched on maybe half a block where Harlem reaches up for Central Park. Its walls were covered with withered ivy, and its windows were barred with iron, not withered. On a soot-covered sign, you could make out a restful-sounding name. Primrose Sanitarium, rest home for what you couldn't make out. And then a door was unlocked. And a man stood in front of you in a starched white jacket, with his hands folded like ice tongs that hung from his narrow shoulders.
It's after visiting hours, chum.
I was invited. Danny Clover, Broadway Special Detail.
Oh, we've been waiting for you. Waiting with bated breath, chum. Come on in, chum.
You're the friendly type, huh?
Oh, yes. All the chums in our little institution find me gentle and friendly. Right down this hallway.
The chums? Who are they?
Sick people, lost people. You know how it is.
Do I?
Of course you do. You're a policeman. That settles it.
And you? What are you?
Male nurse named Horace Vesper, assistant to physician Ellery. Him and me, we're the administering angels of Primrose Sanitarium.
Angels?
Mm-hmm, chum. Here we are.
Who is it, Horace? One of the patients giving us trouble?
No, physician. They're all asleep like suckling babes. This is the detective who answered the call we made.
Oh. How do you do, sir? I'm Dr. William Ellery. Well, I see you're astonished at the state my laboratory's in. But we've had a disorder here, as you see. A bourbon, sir?
On the phone, you said a man was dead. Where is he?
Oh, there on my operating table. Show the detective, Horace.
Sure, physician. Over here, chum. See how it is, Mr. Clover?
Yeah. Who was he? One of your patients?
In a sense.
You can talk plainer than that.
I don't think I can. You tell him about it, Horace.
Sure, physician. It was like this, chum. We found this man on our doorstep. He was...
One of the lost people?
You're quick, chum. No. This one was bleeding from a knife wound, but lots of blood. Stabbed. So I lifted him in my arms like he was a foundling babe, and I brought him here to the physician. We gave him a transfusion.
Yeah, just the only thing I could do. He'd lost too much blood already. He was dying. I haven't practiced surgery for many years, Mr. Clover, but I think my old professors would have been proud of me.
Who was he?
That's your problem, chum. There was no identification on him. Not a thing. This one was one of the anonymous chums.
And so the tedious routine of why an anonymous man died began. And it's easy to be anonymous in New York. All you have to do is like cheesecake, shove on subways, stare on windy street corners, and wish you were in Miami. You're one of the crowd, worth 2 dimes a day to the BMT. Nobody bothers about you. But if you want someone to bother about you, there's another way. You can be found dead. Then you're an important guy. New York demands to know who you are, and you become the star attraction the next morning in the morgue. Me? I represent the police department, and I'm your custodian. I exhibit you.
I'm afraid to look, Lieutenant.
You'll have to, ma'am. Okay, Detective.
Yeah, Danny.
Well, ma'am?
Poor man.
Your father?
No, he's not my father.
Thank you. Will you tell the next lady to come in?
Yes, of course.
You know, Danny, a policeman's got to protect life and property, but...
This man is property, Tartaglia. Somebody's.
Yeah, I know. But they didn't mention this detail when I took my civil service exam. Now, Danny, 20 years, and I'm not used to it yet.
That makes you different. What did you find on Dr. Ellery?
Well, so far, legitimate. License, everything. Oh, another one, Danny.
Yeah. This way, ma'am.
I'm Mrs. Bullock. Mrs. Eugene Bullock. I just thought...
Tartaglia.
Yeah.
I just thought... Well, he didn't come home. Mr. Bullock didn't for a whole night. He's never done that before. Never.
Tartaglia, water.
Here, Mrs. Bullock. Drink this.
Thank you. Since today is our 25th anniversary, I thought... Well, I knew Mr. Bullock wouldn't want to miss that. This was our first trip to New York, you see. Mr. Bullock hadn't been out of Iowa before.
You don't have to tell me now.
Yesterday he left the hotel. Mr. Bullock had an appointment at 7. I've always liked pearls, and he was going to get me a necklace. Surprise. I didn't let on, but I knew about it.
The appointment? With whom?
He had the money with him, and he was going to see Mr. Branch. Mr. Eben Branch.
Eben Branch. Got that, Tartaglia?
Yeah.
I didn't want to ruin Mr. Bullock's pleasure. I knew what it meant to him.
There wasn't much more she had to tell us after that. Then she asked to be left alone with her husband. I planted Tartaglia in the shadows and got out of there. The New York telephone directory is a jewel, a dream, a work of art. It gave me Eben Branch's business, trader, his address, 12 Gramercy Park South, and his telephone number. What I needed I couldn't get by dialing, so I called on Eben Branch, trader, 12 Gramercy Park South.
From the police, eh? Avail yourself of a bamboo fan, my boy. The rain is making it more humid, I think.
The place of Eben Branch was a fragment torn out of a tropical paradise and enclosed in double-paneled glass. Even to the white cargo-type rain pouring down in the space between the glass walls from a contraption bearing the seal of approval of the New York City engineers. Tropical birds played tropical games and sang sad songs in huge cages of gilded bamboo. And sitting in a fan-shaped wicker chair was Eben Branch, wearing yellowed linen, his hands touching the head of a girl, a silent girl in a jade sarong who strummed a tropical-type guitar.
You'll find it pleasant here, Mr. Clover, far from the terrors of that jungle out there. You'll stay for a bit?
I may never leave.
Splendid. You're a man of quality, sir. I knew it the moment I saw you. I said as much to the girl here. Didn't I, girl? And now what can I do for you, sir?
You could wake me up.
Oh, it's no dream, Mr. Clover. All this was bought at a good price. A few souls, a few deaths, and a fantastic hoard of pearls. The South Sea is a veritable paradise, boy, veritable.
Wouldn't it have been simpler to leave paradise where it belonged? I only asked because I wouldn't know.
You mean go back?
Uh-huh.
Impossible.
Oh?
Of course, impossible. The moment I set foot on that island nirvana, I should be gutted by the native I stole the pearls from. Needn't concern you, Mr. Clover. That was 30 years ago, not your domain.
What concerns me is a man named Eugene Bullock.
Eugene Bullock. Do you know where he is?
I asked you first.
Well, the simpleton had an appointment with me last night at midnight.
Midnight? His wife said he was to meet you at 7.
Men lie to their wives. As I say, Mr. Clover, midnight is the hour at which I find myself most amenable to the conduct of business. Till then, I have other matters.
In the phone book, it says you're a trader. Is that a business?
Trader is a word I use to make me glamorous and unreal. Term I insert in my advertising matter to attract suckers. I sell pearls, Mr. Clover, for cash.
I see.
Only cash. Mr. Bullock wanted pearls. I was prepared to sell him $5,000 worth.
Did you?
That's the tragedy, Mr. Clover. Simpleton never showed up. And I need $5,000 desperately. Paradise comes high, Mr. Clover.
And so, as the sun sank slowly in the west, I bade a fond farewell to the land of palmettos and jasmine and exiled beach boys. If what Branch had told me was true, the pattern of Mr. Bullock's life needed completing. His last 5 hours of living. What happened to Mr. Bullock last night between 7 and midnight? People had died during those hours, but why Mr. Bullock? And as an extra added question, what happened to the $5,000 he had on his person? By the time I got back to headquarters, the description of Mr. Eugene Bullock had been circulated all over the area.
Hiya, Danny. How goes it?
Oh, hello, Marty. Okay. How's the cab business?
As the saying goes, yeah.
What do you need?
I think I got something for you. Look, the little guy, that Eugene Bullock.
Yeah?
Maybe he was in my cab last night about 7 o'clock.
We had some pictures taken downstairs, Marty. Here. Look. That him?
Looks calmer, but yeah, that's him. Last night he looked more excited.
Like how?
Like so. He gets in the cab and he says, cruise around. I cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Through the rearview mirror, I see he's got the same expression like a kid writing with chalk on a wall, you know? So I asked the question and he says, yeah.
Where'd you take him?
Oh, first to the village and a spot I know in Chinatown, places like that. Nothing suits this guy, nothing. Then we hit a dime a dance dive up 105th Street. This he goes wild about. He loves it. He pays me and he leaves. Is that what you want, Danny?
Huh?
¿Quiere usted bailar? ¿Es necesario sacarlos?
No, whatever it is, no. If that's how we say no in Spanish.
Por favor.
Look, who's around here? I can tell I'm from the police.
Adios, senor. Adios.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What frightened you about the word police, senorita?
Get away. Get away from me.
Oh, now it's in English, huh? You learn fast. Let's go, senorita. Let's go where we can talk without background music.
Trouble with this guy, Ross.
Take off, we're chatting. We're having an intimate type conversation.
I am intruding.
Sanchez.
Intruding's the word. Beat it.
We do something about your mouth.
You tried, friend. You really did. What do you know? Man gets knocked down in a fight, nobody pays any attention. This what happened last night, Rosa? Is this what happened last night?
Music happened last night with maracas, Latin music.
When we were interrupted, I was saying, let's go. Let's go.
Wait.
All right.
Last night I was dancing with a sailor, a pretty sailor boy from Peru. And then a man was stabbed.
The man died.
Oh, bad. Somebody sees blood, somebody screams. Everybody runs out. There's even the pretty sailor boy. The wounded man is lying on the floor. Stabbed, but not dead.
Then what?
Sanchez helped me to lift him to my automobile. I drove him a little way to a sanitarium where's the doctor. I left him.
Why did you take the trouble? Why didn't you run, too?
I felt sorry for the little man lying there.
Oh? How about $5,000, Rosa? The little man had that much with him when he came here. He didn't have it later.
Senor, I have never seen $5,000 in my life.
Is that the truth, Rosa?
Es verdad. The truth. But you want me anyhow, don't you? I am arrested, yes?
She was arrested, yes. And booked, yes. And Sanchez, her admirer, si, also. It was simple and it was fast. I had the victim, the motive, and 2 grade A suspects. I told the boys in the press room the solution of the murder of Eugene Bullock was only a matter of hours. Simple routine, I told them. I've never been so wrong in all my life.
You are listening to Broadway's My Beat, starring Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover.
Broadway is the name of a street, and it's a world apart. It's a world that explodes every 24 hours, then starts all over again. The faces might be different, but the expressions are the same. The current population had a current crime to consider, and I had promised them a killer. The killer of Eugene Bullock, an alien from Iowa. But I wasn't keeping my word. Grade A suspect Rosa was being uncooperative. She said she didn't have anything to do with the killing. Somebody else at the dance hall must have done it. So I gave her a chance to tell me who. The chance was the police lineup.
Well, they're ready out there, Danny. 12 guys who could have been at the dance hall at the time of the stabbing.
Thanks, Tartaglia. This is what we call a police lineup, Rosa. Rosa?
Yes?
The lights are so arranged that we can see those 12 men and they can't see us. You can say what you like and the men won't know who's speaking.
I see. Yes.
Now, I want you to pick out the men you recognize. The men who were in the dance hall night before last. Go ahead.
That one, Lieutenant. The tall man on the end.
Oh, that's Artie Westfall, Danny. Gets his name on the blotter like clockwork. Vagrancy. Commutes between the Bowery and the drunk tank. 2 convictions for purse snatching.
Never mind, Tartaglia. Let's just run them down. Who else, Rosa?
The one in the brown sweater with the eyeglasses.
Yeah. Who else?
That one.
You mean the one holding the cap?
Oh, yes, that one too, but I mean the one next to him.
Go ahead.
That one. And that one. Yes, I'm sure of it.
Keep going.
The man without hair and with the mustache.
You remember him?
I danced with him. He wanted to meet me later.
Okay, Tartaglia. Let him go, all of them. Tell him to go home.
Yeah, Danny, sure.
Take Rosa back to the matron and lock her up again.
Senor, what are you doing? I don't understand.
And I'll explain. You're lying. You're covering up for someone. The last man you pointed out, the baldy who danced with you. He was planted in the lineup. He's a cop. Take her away, Tartaglia. Maybe your boyfriend's got a better memory. Thanks, officer. I'll call you when I'm through. Cigarette, Sanchez?
No. No from you.
Here's a pack. Keep them. They're yours.
By what right you hold me here? By what right, huh?
Man was murdered. That gives us rights. Him and me.
You're crazy, insane. I kill no one, police, stupid.
You're man of honor, huh, Sanchez?
Como?
I'll explain. You're a man of honor. You love Rosa. It degrades you if anyone manhandles her.
I would kill him.
That's what I say. You killed Eugene Bullock because he made passes at Rosa.
Between a wish and the apple leaves there is great space.
You stabbed him, and then you got a bonus, a $5,000 bonus, and that healed your wounded honor.
You are only trying, police. I know guys like that, always trying. We have a word for them in Spanish.
Be polite, Sanchez. It's easier when you're polite.
Okay. I'm polite.
That's good.
What have you done to Rosa?
I wondered how long before you'd ask me that.
What have you done to Rosa?
If we had to. She confessed to the murder of Eugene Bullock.
You lie. Your mouth lies.
She confessed, Sanchez.
She only does it to protect me. I stab him.
Tell me about it.
What like you say? This Bullock, he put hands on Rosa. His old hands on Rosa's body. This happened many times with Rosa. The hands of an old man.
Yeah. The $5,000, where is it?
Oh, leave me alone, please. Leave me alone.
All right, Sanchez. I'll get a stenographer.
Did he confess, Danny?
Yeah. What do you want, Tartaglia?
Oh, I thought you'd want to know about this, Danny. They fished Horace Vesper out of the lake in Central Park.
When?
About an hour ago. Hey, Danny, getting Sanchez to confess, that could mean a promotion.
To what, Tartaglia? To oblivion? You have it in the palm of your hand, sewn up clean and neat, and it slips away because a man named Horace Vesper was found dead in a lake. That changes it, and you shudder at the fatal mistake you almost made. You shudder. By that time, you're pushing your way through a crowd whose eyes are vacant and unblinking. And it's the same crowd you always see in attendance at a public dying. The setting was nice, though. Central Park never looked better. The leaves turning to gold, the sun shimmering on the lake, ducks fat and happy, the dashing blue uniform of New York's finest, and the lump of a man lying gray and sodden on the bank.
That's him, Danny. Some kid in a rowboat saw him down in the water. That's how we happened to...
No marks of violence on him, I think.
No, Danny. This guy must have been one of them health addicts. He goes in the water without no shirt on. I figured the guy goes in for a dip because, like I say, with him, health is a thing. And the shock of the cold water surprises him and stops his heart from beating.
That's how you figured it.
Yeah. Adds up, don't it?
I'm thrilled.
Here is the deceased effects, Danny. Driver's license made out to Horace Vesper, Primrose Sanitarium. Blue Shield medical card, a wallet with no dough. But plenty pictures of his Navy buddies.
How do you figure buddies?
Yeah, this was a bit of detective work, Danny. See this watch fob?
Yeah, but tell me about it anyway.
It's a cleverly contrived watch fob, contrived from one of Horace Vesper's Navy dog tags. That's how I figure the guys in the pictures are his buddies.
Let's see it.
Sure, Danny, here. Cleverly contrived, huh? With my dog tags, I did something different. Well, Danny, you figure it like I figure it?
No, I don't figure it like you figure it.
How you figure?
I figure like murder.
Huh?
Yeah, Only I got like to prove it.
Hi, Danny. Come on in.
Thanks, Maria. How's the darling of the police laboratory? Everything okay? Need some new Bunsen burners and things? Tell Danny about it. I'll fix it.
How about just walking on little cat's feet, huh, Danny?
Am I interrupting something?
Well, Dr. Sinsky over there is working on something important, an experiment that can't stand a sudden jolt.
Yeah? What is it?
His lunch, cheese souffle.
Oh. Well, then just tell me what your brains and equipment turned up on Horace Vesper, and I'll tiptoe out of here.
Well, we ran a marsh test.
Uh-huh.
In outline, Danny. No signs of poison. A sedative, yes, but a mild one, nothing lethal.
Was he drowned?
Not that either, Danny. No trace of water in the pleura. Sorry, in the lungs. He didn't drown.
No, I didn't think he did. What else, Maria?
Well, there are 2 punctures, one on each arm, made by a large type needle. The type they use for transfusions, I'd say.
Yeah. What else?
Look in the microscope, Danny. The one right there.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Not exactly. All I see is somebody looking back at me.
That's your eyeball, Danny. Adjust it. Here, let me.
Now I'm winking at myself.
I'll tell you about it. And you won't believe it.
I'll believe it. Tell me.
Horace Vesper's Navy dog tag has made a liar out of science.
Get off the dime, Maria. What are you trying to say?
Well, it's obvious what I'm trying to say. Horace's dog tag says he had type A blood. The microscope shows something else.
Like what?
In the specimen I've examined of his blood, there are too many clots. Both A and B cells are agglutinized.
Come on.
Mr. Vesper's blood has been tampered with. Now it's both type A and B. Strange, isn't it?
I didn't answer Maria because everybody knows there'll always be a new way, a strange way to kill a man. Instead, I went back to Primrose Sanitarium. Its door stood open, so I walked in. I found the hallway that led to the laboratory and felt my way along it in the darkness. And that's what I got. Darkness.
So soon, Lieutenant? I didn't expect that you would awaken so soon, Lieutenant.
Where?
Yeah, in my office, Lieutenant, in bed. I really didn't expect you to awaken so soon, Lieutenant.
My side.
It's a mess, all right.
Yeah?
You see, Lieutenant, I hold myself personally accountable for what happened. One of the patients somehow got into my office and somehow got into my desk.
Somehow got your gun and somehow shot me. Why?
His protest against the world, I suppose. The kind of world he's made for himself. Anyone outside of it is an enemy.
Now you're going to keep things locked up, huh?
I'll see to it. But it's Horace's job. He should know better.
Horace?
Now, lie still, Lieutenant. You've lost a lot of blood. You're weak.
I am? Looks like a flesh wound to me.
It's worse than that. You'll be better, though, after you've had a transfusion and some rest. A whole lot of rest.
I'm weak, huh? I can sit up. See, it hurts. I can do it.
Oh, don't be a fool, Lieutenant. Lie down. You'll only aggravate your condition.
Yeah. We mustn't aggravate conditions.
No, it's a transfusion, Lieutenant. It won't hurt a bit. We'll just dab your arm with alcohol. And now, I'll get these things ready.
My blood type's A, Doctor.
Yes, I know. I ran a test on it while you were asleep.
We mustn't make a mistake. Give me a transfusion of type B blood. Because that wouldn't make me well. That would kill me. The way it killed Mr. Bullock.
I beg your pardon.
You didn't give Bullock a transfusion to save his life. You gave him a transfusion to kill him.
Oh, poor fellow. Delirious.
You killed Horace, too. Sedative in his bourbon, I figured. And you gave him a transfusion of B blood while you took A blood out of him. Cute. You wanted all Mr. Bullock's money yourself. That was greedy, Doctor.
Now, Lieutenant.
Remember your Hippocratic oath, Doctor.
You need that transfusion, Lieutenant.
Put down that needle.
You're delirious. You have to be quiet.
Put down that needle.
You have got to be quiet.
Here's some quieting for you. You just rest right there, Doctor. That's the way it ended. The part of it that I knew about. I had to be told the rest. That the police found the doctor in the corner of the laboratory gibbering to a bottle of bourbon. That I fought them all the way to the emergency ward, and that nobody in medical history protested the way I did. All they wanted to do, they said, was give me a transfusion. There's laughter on Broadway now. It's night, and the street is tearing itself apart. It's drinks on the house, and have another one, Joe. And, hey, mister, I can really show you the sights. It's a frenzy and the big noise. Mostly it's the big noise. Otherwise, you'd hear the heartbreak. Because it's Broadway, the gaudiest, the most violent, the lonesomest mile in the world. Broadway, my feet.
is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, an interesting case where Danny goes a lot of places but ends up right where he started. And I think that is an interesting way to structure a mystery. The murder method was bold and clever, but also really risky because it did ultimately point back to the only doctor in the case, right where the body was revealed to have been. Given the high likelihood of the doctor being the perpetrator after what Danny learned, it was a bit crazy that he chose to go at him alone, as you definitely had cause to take him downtown for questioning. This illustrates how, in many ways, the series has Danny acting and being treated a bit more like a lone gun private eye than a police lieutenant in the NYPD. Not necessarily bad, but it's just how the series works. We also saw two really good cases of doubling up as actors. Both Tony Barrett and Alan Reed played two roles. Barrett was both the cabbie and the boyfriend, and Reed was both the pearl seller and a cop investigating the nurse's murder. I suspect there may have been more doubling I missed. Both Reed and Barrett had the ability to create multiple characters and be subtle enough about it that it wouldn't stand out too much to your casual listener. And of course, there's different approaches. With Reed, it was the more high-status, refined pearl seller as opposed to the lower-status, working-class cop. And for Barrett, it was more an issue of dialects. And this allows you to have a series like Broadway's My Beat feature, characters who are only in one or two scenes without it being obvious to the audience, and also without blowing your budget by hiring a different actor for each little role. Well, listener comments and feedback now. And we start with a note from Sherry, who writes, I hope this letter finds you well. Please find enclosed a small donation. Love your program. It has helped keep me sane. Your humanity and decency shine through. God bless. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. Appreciate your note and donation. And then I got this letter, and it's topped out with the bannerhead of the Chicago Star, and with the subject, your radio show. Dear Mr. Graham, I wanted to drop this brief note. I greatly appreciate your radio show, particularly when you highlight my cases. During a recent meeting with several of my friends, John J. Malone, Dan Garrett, and Rory Malone, we agreed that your action in keeping old-time radio alive was admirable. We had a whip around and raised some money for a one-time contribution. I've asked my friend to include a check with this letter with the proceeds of this whip around. Well, thank you, and it is signed Randy Stone. I love the detail on it. Now, unfortunately, the check was made out to the great detectives of old-time radio, and I can't actually cash the check unless it's made out to me personally. And that does bring up another question that some have asked about the P.O. Box in terms of how long it will take for their check to clear. And it may take a little bit of time just because I only check it once every 4 weeks. I used to check it much more frequently, but based on the number of checks that I tend to get there, it doesn't make sense for me to drive cross town more frequently to check that. I've thought about moving the P.O. Box to a location closer to me, but I've put that address not only in writing, but on so many podcast episodes over the years, kind of hard to change. So it may take a while, but it will get cleared. And sorry for any inconvenience on that. And we turn to comments regarding Broadway's My Beat, and we start on YouTube with a comment or question on the Val Dane murder case. Did Johnny Dollar or any other detective show use this same storyline? I think I can say for certain that Johnny Dollar did not. I would have remembered if it did. The Val Dane murder case was such a unique storyline, so it would seem that it would stand out. The only thing that it might have gotten adapted to, and I'm not quite as familiar with this series, is Bold Venture. I've listened to all the episodes, but I don't have them committed to memory by any means. But even though Bold Venture wasn't a detective series, Fine and Friedkin took one of their Broadway's My Beat scripts and adapted it into a Bold Venture episode. I would think that would be a hard one to adapt even to that series. Sandra drops a heart regarding the same episode, and then Betsy writes, "Great episode, love the yogi." That was actually a fascinating casting choice, to have William Conrad play a yogi, which is not the typical William Conrad role at all, but he did a really memorable job in it. And that leads me to a comment regarding our Chief of Detectives special, Red Forest. Reinser writes, "Great story, Bill Conrad is amazing." And then we turn to Spotify, where Gino comments regarding the Mai Ling murder case. "Broadway is my Scarlet Queen is more like it. John Smith equals Ossing. McGrath equals either Magnum Brother. Treacherous Femme Fatale. Danny Clover equals Philip Carney. Elliot Lewis incorporated elements of his former show." An interesting idea, Dino. Now, it should be said that on Voyage of the Scarlet Queen, Elliot Lewis was officially just an actor. He didn't write or direct, and Morton Fine and David Friedkin were not involved with that project. However, sometimes an actor's connection to a particular project will play out in another project when they switch the sides of the camera or microphone, as the case might be. Jack Webb had a similar involvement in He Walked by Night. He just played one of the roles in the movie, but anyone who has seen both He Walked by Night and Dragnet knows that aspects of He Walked by Night were really key to what would later come to define Dragnet. And Lewis definitely had an affection for his former series. In fact, in 1950, he would produce a pilot for a revival radio program under a different name, with the exact same concept, Log of the Black Parrot, which wouldn't ultimately be picked up. But I do think it lends credence to the idea that Voyage of the Scarlet Queen was influential on Broadway's My Beat, at least in that one episode. Well, now it is time to thank our Patreon supporter of the day. And I want to go ahead and thank Philip. Philip's been one of our Patreon supporters since June 2023, currently supporting the podcast at the Seamus level of $4 or more per month. Thank you so much for your support, Philip. And that will actually do it for today. If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow us using your favorite podcast software. And if you're enjoying the podcast on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and mark the notification bell. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of Broadway's My Beat, but join us back here tomorrow for Mr. and Mrs. North, where...
I'm doing fine. Have any hunches yet?
I have a hunch they're both lying.
That's no hunch. It's a logical conclusion based on observation of the facts.
You must believe me. I tell you, I killed Walter Middleton.
With your little hatchet, yeah, we know.
Now, look. Don't either of you fellas want to change your stories?
No. I killed Walter Middleton.
He didn't. I did.
Okay.
Here comes the policeman.
Oh, yes, he has David Middleton with him.
Hello, Lieutenant Wagon.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Mr. and Mrs. North.
Hello.
Lieutenant, I don't know how you're going to like this. Maybe it's good and maybe it ain't.
All right, what's up?
Well, you sent me to question young Middleton here and check up on his whereabouts on the night of the murder, so I did.
Yes?
Well, what do you think he tells me? He says he killed his father.
Oh, that's swell. He what?
Yeah. He wants to confess.
Bill, it looks like you've hit the jackpot.
I hope you'll be with us then. In the meantime, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/greatdetectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.